So let's talk about Babylon. We're diving into the final, really dramatic chapters of one of history's greatest empires. I mean, how does a city that basically rules the world just fade away?
Okay, so to kick things off, just try to get this image in your head. The historian Herodotus, he wrote that the walls of Babylon were so massive, so incredibly wide, that 4 chariots could literally race side by side on top of them. I mean, that's insane. This wasn't just a city, right? It was a fortress, the absolute definition of impregnable. And that really sets up the big question that's going to hang over this whole story. How on earth could a city like that ever fall?
You know, the story of Babylon's last big hurrah, its final era of greatness, doesn't really start with building walls. It starts with fire and a whole lot of ambition. See, for centuries, Babylon had been kind of stuck under the thumb of the super-powerful Assyrian Empire. But as we get to the late 7th century BC, things were about to change, and I mean really change.
And the speed of this comeback, it was absolutely staggering. We're talking about going from a subject kingdom to the world's undisputed superpower in just a little over 2 decades. Think about that. They didn't just, declare independence and call it a day. No, they teamed up with the Medes, marched right up to the Assyrian capital of Nineveh, and burned the whole thing to the ground. Just like that, they seized control of this huge empire.
So with all this newfound power and just incredible wealth, the new king, Nebuchadnezzar, he decides he's going to make his capital city a true wonder of the ancient world. Something that really showed off its new status as top dog. And this wasn't just a few upgrades here and there. This was a total urban transformation. See, Nebuchadnezzar wasn't just some conqueror. He was a master builder, and on an absolutely epic scale. He poured money into the temples, he paved the city streets, and yeah, he built those legendary walls we were talking about. He was turning Babylon into a living, breathing spectacle of power.
This right here, this was Babylon's peak. It was a golden age of unbelievable splendor and strength. If you lived there then, you'd have thought for sure it was going to last forever. But you know how these stories go. As history always shows us, no empire, no matter how magnificent, lasts forever. So while Babylon is living it up in its golden age, a new power is quietly getting its act together over in the east. And this was the Persian Empire, led by one of the most brilliant military minds in all of history, Cyrus the Great. And you have to understand, for a lot of people back then, this wasn't just about politics or armies on the move. There was this prophecy that had been floating around for nearly 200 years. A prophecy that said Babylon would one day fall to the Medes. So imagine what it was like when Cyrus, leading a combined army of Medes and Persians, starts marching west. It must have felt like history was literally holding its breath, just waiting for destiny to play out.
Okay, so everything comes to a head in this one year, 539 BC. That's when Cyrus and his army finally show up at the gates of Babylon. Now, a direct attack on those insane walls, that would have been total suicide. Cyrus knew he needed a different plan, a smarter plan.
And wow, what a plan it was. Instead of trying to go over the walls, Cyrus decided to go under them, in a way. See, the Euphrates River flowed right through the middle of Babylon, which also acted as this perfect natural moat. So Cyrus had his engineers dig a massive canal upstream to divert the river's flow. The water level inside the city drops, like way down. In one brilliant move, he turned the city's greatest defense into its biggest weakness. And the timing? Absolutely perfect. Inside the city, the Babylonians are completely distracted. They're celebrating a huge religious festival, feeling totally safe behind those impenetrable walls. They have absolutely no idea that Cyrus's army is just quietly wading through the now shallow riverbed, walking right into the heart of their city. The world's greatest city fell, not with some epic bloody battle, but with the quiet footsteps of an army walking through a river. It's unbelievable.
But here's the thing. Being conquered is one thing. Actually accepting it, that's something else entirely. Babylon had been the center of the world for way too long to just roll over. Its imperial pride, well, it wasn't going to be put out that easily.
So what happened next was this clear pattern of just fierce defiance. Not once, but twice in less than 10 years, Babylon rebelled against Persian rule. And get this, look at who the rebel leaders claimed to be. Nebuchadnezzar III, and then Nebuchadnezzar IV. They were trying to use the name, the memory of their greatest king to light that old imperial fire again.
But each time they rebelled, the Persian response got more and more brutal. After that second revolt, the Persian king, Darius the Great, he didn't just execute the rebel leader. No, he had him and his main followers publicly impaled. Inside the city. I mean, that is a terrifyingly graphic message to send to anyone else even thinking about independence.
And yet, Babylon's pride was just that stubborn. About 40 years later, they rose up one last time. And this final, desperate act of rebellion, it was going to trigger a response that wasn't just about punishing the city. It was about breaking its very soul.
King Xerxes' punishment was systematic. It was devastating. He destroyed their major temples. He carried away the sacred statue of their chief god, Marduk, which was a huge religious and symbolic blow. He might have even started tearing down those famous walls. This wasn't just about putting down a rebellion anymore. This was a deliberate attempt to erase Babylonian identity and power for good.
So, after decades of rebellion and these just brutal Persian crackdowns, the long, slow decline of the world's greatest city had officially begun.
And this really sums up the city's ultimate fate. It went from being the imperial capital, the absolute center of power, to just another provincial center within the huge Persian Empire. Sure, it was still wealthy, it was still culturally important, but its power, its ability to shape its own destiny, that was gone, forever.
And the damage really did last. I mean, over 150 years later, when Alexander the Great rolls into town, he finds a city that's just a shadow of what it once was. Temples were still lying in ruins from what Xerxes had done. Now, Alexander, he had big dreams. He wanted to restore Babylon, make it his own capital, bring back the glory days. But then he died before any of those plans could happen, and that really sealed the city's fate for good.
So, it all leaves us with this one big, crucial question, right? What really caused the end of Babylon? Was it the pure genius of its conquerors like Cyrus? Or was it the city's own fierce, stubborn pride, this absolute refusal to be ruled, a refusal that provoked a response so incredibly harsh that it guaranteed its golden age could never, ever return? It's something to think about.